Hello and welcome back to One Hit Wonderland, where we take a look at bands and artists known for only one song. Okay, now this is the last request, and after this I can finally go back to reviewing songs that I actually want to review, such as... well, I'm sure I'll think of something. And yet again, we are looking at a new wave MTV hit, which, yes, is certainly overrepresented on this show. After this, I'm not going to touch another new wave song till like 2023. But this isn't just any MTV new wave hit here. This is the MTV new wave hit. This is the defining breakthrough moment of the entire music video era. That's right, we're yet again going back to the 70s. Yes, believe it or not, the song that's widely perceived as having kicked off the 80s wasn't even from the 80s, and landed at #1 in the UK 2 months before the decade even started. But in America, the song will forever be associated with the fact that it was the first video ever played on MTV on August 1st, 1981. Because on its original release, Video Killed the Radio Star did not cross over. It only ever barely scraped into the top 40. And by that I mean it reached number 40 on the charts and no higher. Which is really just fitting in the most bluntly obvious way possible. Of course it didn't do well on the charts. In 1979, success on Billboard was mostly driven by promotion on the radio. It couldn't get big until there was a real platform for music videos. And it's not like MTV's original launch was seen by very many people, but when it did become the decade-defining phenomenon we know it as now, it was hard to see Video Killed the Radio Star as anything other than a prophecy come true. And yet, if this was a future they predicted, why weren't they a part of it? If there's anyone who had their fingers on the pulse of popular music, it was these guys. Well, it turns out the Buggles' career arc is one of the stranger ones I've covered on One Hit Wonderland. It's, yeah, this one's a little all over the place. So, let's get to it. Let us autopsy the radio star and find out how it was killed. Oh, oh! Okay, let's start off with that name. That's a stupid name. Sounds like a cutesy 80s cartoon or something. The idea behind it was that it's like the Beatles, and you know, Beatles are bugs, so the Buggles. No. Let me really explain. See, they dreamed up this nightmare future scenario, I'm guessing while high, where all the bands in the world were fake and being run by this crazy mad scientist with a computer pumping out shitty perversions of good music. Like, his shitty version of the Beatles would be the Buggles. And for some reason, they made this the name of their band. Yeah, they've admitted multiple times that the name is terrible and it was a stupid idea, but their excuses, you know, they didn't really care at the time, they were just out of school, they didn't know a goddamn thing about anything. Anyway, there's only 2 actual Buggles. The singer is Trevor Horn, and the keyboardist is Jeffrey Downs. And there was also a 3rd guy, Bruce Woolley, and they wrote a bunch of songs together, but Bruce got signed as a solo act. And then the Buggles also got signed, so they both recorded the songs they wrote together on both of their separate albums, including Video Killed the Radio Star. So let's check out Bruce's version. Yeah, it's a little less polished, a little punkier, a little more Elvis Costello. There's a whole alternate universe where this is the version that got big, but it didn't, because, as far as I can tell, they did not film an actual music video for it. Which, I mean, come on, what song do you think you're singing? It needs a video. Let's look at a proper version with a real video. When I hear Video Killed the Radio Star, I think of the future. I heard you on the wireless back. Which, you know, this song really shouldn't still have the power to do that. I mean, it's the future as imagined in 1979. I don't even know any of the radio stars that video killed. Marveling at how TV supplanted radio. I mean, they may as well be saying, "Oh my word, can you believe those horseless carriages are putting our buggy drivers out for work?" Hell, there is no video star anymore. Music videos are less relevant than ever. MP3s killed the video star. Spotify killed the MP3 star. And music that we swallow in pill form will kill the Spotify star someday not very long from now. So, video killed the radio star with all its up-to-date and futuristic outfits and sci-fi sets from the 70s. This should be a camp artifact. This should feel about as dated as an episode of Battlestar Galactica. The hell is a VCR? So the really amazing thing is that even with all the time that's passed, Video Killed the Radio Star is still as powerful as it was 3 decades ago. And that's at least partly because even as it evokes the future, it's also a tribute to the past, a world that's gone by. Video Killed the Radio Star is a song about nostalgia. You right now are all feeling nostalgia for nostalgia. Video Killed the Radio Star can't become dated, because it was already dated when it was released. Even in 1979, I have to believe this stuff looked cheesy, and on purpose. What with his mad scientist get up and the Star Trek alien babes.
They took the credit for your second symphony.
It's about radio stars whose careers were ended by television, I guess. Which, honestly, I've never heard of that. Did that happen? Were there stars who couldn't make the jump to TV? Were they just that ugly? I mean, the music of the 50s and the 60s and even the 70s don't really seem all that image-centric. Certainly not the way the 80s were. Even in the video, the images of radio stars look fake and phony. I really love this video, by the way. In fact, you can kind of see the same image that was allegedly their origin story, a mad scientist manufacturing music with his evil mega-computer. Not only did the Buggles predict MTV, they also predicted people complaining about MTV, because it used to be about the music, man. And it just sounds so good. The hooks, the production, it's perfect. If it's a dated future, it's still absolutely gorgeous. Bruce Woolley's version was never going to be a hit, even though he's a much better singer than Trevor Horn.
And you remember the jingles used to go.
I mean, Horn looks and sounds like Jerry Lewis as the Nutty Professor. Video killed the lady! But the Buggles' sleeker, shinier version captures something bigger that the other version just doesn't. Also, it doesn't have the backup singers going, "oh, oh," which, I mean, let's be real, that's super important. I mean, this song just lays on the hooks. So, now we know how was killed the radio star. Who killed the Buggles star? The Buggles released 3 more singles off their first album, all of which had rapidly decreasing success on the charts. And again, I mean all in the UK. In America, we'd still never heard of them at this point. So let's check them out. Okay, their second single was the title track, or almost title track, Living in the Plastic Age. Certainly a fitting and prophetic theme for all the same reasons as Video Killed the Radio Star. Let's take a listen. Okay, first off, this sounds like a weird mix of Devo and ABBA. I don't know, I kind of like it, but I can see why it didn't catch on. First off, it's nowhere as slick as Radio Star. It's too herky-jerky, and there's way too much going on. Seriously, what the hell is happening?
Hello, doctor, lift my face. I wish my skin could stand the pace.
Okay, where Radio Star evoked a shiny Star Trek sci-fi future, this sounds more like Dr. Frankenstein toying with the forces of nature. I mean, I'm enjoying it, but it's not very pop. Also, the video is lame and dated in all the ways that Video Killed the Radio Star wasn't. Let's just enjoy. This is just great. what were they even going for? In the age of plastic, there are hooded cave monks, and women are turned into keyboard stands in blackface. Okay, I think I found my new automatic man. Anyway, let's try the next one.
Johnny drove the hot track 'cause we could not find a Jeep. Wake me in the morning, gotta get some sleep. Driving all night.
Yeah, I like the way this one chugs away. Got a little Billy Idol type groove to it.
God, you know it's hard to keep the fighting clean. Clean, clean. Clean, clean.
Okay, never mind, now it just sounds silly. And finally we have Elstree, a romantic ode to an old British movie studio.
Elstree, remember me? I had a part in a B-movie.
I think it's trying to evoke the same kind of washed away nostalgia that Radio Star did, but it's just not the same. I will say this though, I wish they had created videos for all the other songs on that album, which had more promising titles like Johnny on the Monorail, I Love You Miss Robot, and Astro Boy. I've listened to them, believe me, they do live up to their titles. Yeah, they did do other stuff. They joined Yes.
I'll be the roundabout.
Yes. Yes. You know, the prog rock band, Yes. Huge in the 70s. Did really complicated songs that went on for like 15 minutes. Okay, so in 1980, they lost their lead singer, John Anderson, and their star virtuoso keyboardist, Rick Wakeman. And the remaining members ran into the Buggles into the studio, and they were like, hey, would you like to be our new lead singer and keyboard player? And they said yes to Yes. Let me repeat. One of the top selling acts of the 70s, a serious, hardcore, progressive rock band, lost their two most important members and replaced them with the Buggles, a fluky novelty act with one album. This is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard of in rock history. Like, imagine if the lead singer of Muse quit and they replaced him with the guy from Magic. That's about how much sense this makes to me. But it happened.
I could never let you go.
They joined Yes, and they recorded an album in 1980, and obviously this record came out after the band's peak, but hardcore Yes fans widely agree that it was, indeed, an album. It's okay, apparently. But a lot of Yes fans at the time were not ready for this change. For one, John Anderson has range like an opera tenor, and Trevor Horn sounds like Microsoft Sam. The album didn't do that badly, but Yes was like, this was weird, maybe we should call it quits, and they did. And then a couple years later, most of the original band reunited, and look, the story of Yes is really complicated.
I am a camera.
But the Buggles story continued, which turned out to be good timing, as by now MTV had launched and Buggles were seeing spikes in sales in America. Unfortunately, what with all the time spent with Yes, and Jeffrey Downs was in the middle of starting a new band, the music never really came together and the second album flopped. And the Buggles never ever released a third album, because eventually Trevor Horn had to come to the conclusion that Trevor Horn is not a rock star. Duh. I mean, he looks like Al Franken. Downs, meanwhile, had that other band I was talking about. See, he joined up with some members of other bands like Yes and King Crimson, and they put together a new band. A new little band called Asia.
It was the heat of the moment, telling me what my heart meant.
Asia was actually like a serious thing in the 80s. They were big for a while, so don't write them off. That's a big deal. But that's nothing compared to what Trevor Horn accomplished. You see, while he was promoting his second album, he also started doing production work for other bands, and it really started to take off. He even got to work with Yes again and gave them their biggest hit. And besides those songs, what else has he produced? Well, everything.
Relax, don't you rest when you wanna go to rest.
I knew this already, but in case you didn't, Trevor Horn is a superstar producer who has made tons of hits over the course of the next 30 years. He also had a techno group producer collective that was pretty popular at the time, Art of Noise, and he produced many other synth hits. And he also... What, seriously? Kiss from a Rose? Jesus. And, man, that too, huh? And... Oh, come on! That doesn't even make any sense. How? And the guy's still out there, still working, so... Who knows? The next Lady Gaga hit could come from him. It could happen. Sure. I mean, I'm sure Trevor Horn isn't weeping that the Buggles weren't more successful as he sits on his pile of gold records, but yeah, sure, I would have been fine with them having more hits. I can't imagine that ever happening. They were far too weird, but I mean, yeah, what would have been the harm? The Buggles, a strange band that wrote the future.
Kill the radio star. Video kill the